Well, Ryan Blackburn.
Mm-mm-mm.
Welcome back to the show, Mr. Do Everything, Mr. Writer, Mr. NBA, Mr. All-American, Mr. Hey, I'm Ryan. Look at my hair. We're here to talk about Christian Braun. We're going to have a discussion about the Kansas shooting guard and what should the expectations for Christian Braun be? What does the extension look like for Christian Braun? This, for me, is a very hot topic discussion, and I actually can't wait to hear what Ryan Blackburn has to say about it. That's Ryan. I'm Swipa. This is Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to Locked On Nuggets. This is your daily Locked On Nuggets show. Shout out to you all. Thank y'all so much for being here. I deeply appreciate how y'all have been in the grind with us, Ryan Blackburn, during the summer with no content since free agency going around, no new news, and we've just been rocking.
Long. Oh my God, it's been horrible.
we had Eurobasket, thank the Lord. But you know, we're literally, Ryan, what are we, 2 Mondays away from Media Day?
Man, we're 2 Mondays away. It's very exciting. It's going to immediately change. We're going to actually get some fresh quotes. We're going to see these players in person. And then I hear a little birdie at Locked On Nuggets might be traveling to training camp in San Diego at some point. So
oh, wow.
We'll see whether that actually happens or not. But it'll be very interesting to kind of get some boots on the ground for what should be some very fun times for Nuggets fans.
Oh, wow. Well, I can't wait to get to that. Y'all, this is going to be an amazing episode. We got to tap into Christian Braun, y'all. So this is going to be the show. So, you know, Ryan, as somebody who is, I feel like very tapped in to the guard market. You know, I love guards. Everybody knows I love Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Where are you, sir? You know what I mean? Chris Dunn, where are you, sir? You know, I've always liked Christian Braun. I think he's a really, really good player. He does a lot of things really well for this team. I mean, he was maybe one of the 4 best transition players in the sport, maybe higher last year. You got Giannis, and then you get Christian Braun in terms of points per game in the transition, his efficiency in transition. He was a very good on-ball defender as the series went on versus the Clippers and versus OKC. He actually guarded SGA last year. I believe, if I got the numbers correct, I think he guarded SGA last year more than any other player in the NBA.
Yep.
And so that's a lot. Like, he legitimately did everything that he could to try to take away from one of the top 3-4 scorers at minimum in the NBA. And he held him to a 57.3 true shooting on over 72 defensive possessions. Like, that's great.
Yeah,
he does a lot of stuff really well. He's a pretty good rim protector for a guard. He doesn't have like Derek White level instincts, but he's good at it. He's a guy that really knows how to cut off the ball, and especially when you're playing in a movement-based system, the Nuggets pass the ball more than anybody else in the league. And Christian Braun, he has an intelligence level about him, Ryan, that allows for him to really find where he's supposed to be, filling gaps on the court as a cutter, filling gaps as a screener. If they're going to run some kind of 2-5 action, he knows how to slip off of that. He makes that little backside rotation. If you run the initial pick and roll, he can dive off the backside of his defender when they're not looking and paying attention. He catches alley-oops. He can hit threes fairly well in a regular season format. I mean, Ryan, a 6'6", like a legitimate 6'6" freak athlete. I think he had like a 42-inch vertical, I believe, from or maybe actually 44. Yeah, he gets up. He can jump. Ryan, you add all that stuff together, especially for somebody that's going into their 4th year. The Nuggets found at 21 overall in the draft one of the best kinds of players that you could find in this NBA.
Yeah, they absolutely needed it too. This was the first Calvin Booth draft pick that they had to make, and he was fantastic. Like, that was Calvin Booth in his absolute element. Like, he knew exactly the kind of player that Denver needed to add. And Christian Braun was a player that I think everybody in the Nuggets organization agrees is extremely valuable for what they're doing. He was a guy that they trusted to step in for KCP in the starting lineup. Were there bumps along the way? Sure. Was he still just as valuable, if not more so, than KCP throughout over the course of this last year? I would say so. I think the numbers that he put up and the overall level of production and excitement that you can have going forward, I think it was, in retrospect, like a perfectly fine decision for them to make. if like you actually pay Christian Braun, if you actually want to commit to him as your starting shooting guard of the future. I do think that that's the direction that they're going to go. But as we wanted to discuss in this one, how good is Christian Braun actually, I think, is a very fair question for this upcoming contract extension talks. That we'll talk a little bit in that second segment. We've had plenty of disagreements on what that number should be. He is talented. He's versatile, but probably not as talented and versatile as max contract players, as these overall game changers, these young guards, these young wings that are coming in with off the dribble game and scoring chops and things like that. That's not what Christian Braun does. But what he does do is extremely valuable as a complementary player for the Nuggets. And it is so confusing as to how much Denver should actually try to pay that kind of player.
And so, Ryan, by the way, just to kind of buffer up your point, even though it doesn't need to be buffed because Ryan's buff, obviously, it doesn't need to be tampered with. When you're looking at his year-over-year numbers, Ryan, rookie year, 4.7 points per game, 49.5% from the field, 35 from three, 62.5 from free throw line. Like, just a rookie, right? Like you didn't know what to get from him. Played 15 minutes a game. The next year, 20 minutes a game as a backup again, 7 points a game, and then 3.7 rebounds, shot 46% from the field, 38.4 from three on 2 attempts a game. So, okay, numbers are going up. The efficiency is going up on his threes, not his overall twos. But then the next year, he steps into the starting lineup, plays 79 games, starts 77 of them, and he averaged 15.4 points per game, shot 58% from the field, 39.7% from three on 3 attempts a game, and 82.7% from the free throw line.
Yeah.
So if you just did like a raw look at those numbers, Ryan, and I told you players in the NBA as a guard, a third-year player, is giving you 15, 5, 3, and 1, shooting 58, 40, 83 splits, you would hear that and you would be like, this is your 5th starter? That sounds like a really good player. And in a vacuum, that sounds like a player that is definitively a part of your core and somebody who you want to pay early to get ahead of schedule. Because if that's their development track, what does year 4 look like? What does year 5 look like? Ryan, when they're at their peak, what does year 6 look like? So based on those numbers, our evaluation should be, Christian Braun probably deserves like whatever that number is below all-star level money. He's probably on pace to get somewhere around that. But I think that's kind of what I feel like the difference between the eye test and the numbers for me. I think the numbers say this is a extremely versatile player who you need to pay as much as you can early.
Yeah, and like there's obviously like you want to be in control of that, right? You don't want to just throw an open checkbook because the Nuggets do have to be conscientious about who they give the money to, what they're prioritizing going forward, things like that. They have a whole bunch of money that is committed to Nikola Jokic, to Jamal Murray, to Aaron Gordon. They'll probably try to play Cam Johnson at some point here in the future too. So they do have to be conscientious. But if you're a team that has championship aspirations, you're going to be pretty close to that second apron, if not over. And a lot of that is going to come from the fact that, Denver has an elite starting group. It's one of the best, if not the best in the NBA. And Christian Braun is one of the biggest reasons for that because he is at that level as a top 100 player. He just came in at 91 on the Locked On rankings. That he could genuinely be higher than that, like, and kind of in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s over the course of this contract. And so you pay money for that kind of player. You're not just going to get him for free. You're not going to get him for a cheap steal. And I know that that's what a lot of Nuggets fans want in this salary cap era that we're kind of facing, but it's not what they're going to get in all likelihood. I think that Denver knows that they're going to have to pay, and I think that they're comfortable with that.
Yeah, we'll get into the specifics of the number, but I do think the audience needs to know it is extremely rare for you to find a player of Christian's caliber in the 20s.
Yeah.
Like I know we hear like Jimmy Butler and Pascal Siakam and all these other people, but like you find those in the 20s. Tyrese Maxey, didn't he? What do you want? He went 20.
He was 21 right before Zeke Naji at 22.
That's right. Yeah, I remember that. So you will find players like this at this caliber. One of my favorite players in the world is Andrew Nembhard.
Mm-hmm.
He went in the second round, first overall in the second round.
Yep.
Right. And Nembhard is relevant for this conversation on the other side as well. So I do think that Nuggets fans need to realize that for the space you got Christian Braun, he is like exceedingly better than anything you could have expected at 21. And I think has a very bright future ahead of him as well. We're going to talk about some of the numbers around what we're expecting from the contract for Christian Braun on the other side here at Locked On Nuggets.
Wednesday.
Y'all, most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Now, Monarch is built for people with busy lives. So if you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization on your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Now, again, I've talked about Monarch Money a lot on this platform. I truly love everything that they've done to revitalize my finances. And as somebody who's constantly trying to find ways to earn more money, save more money, it's been extremely helpful in getting rid of subscriptions that not only do I not need, that I forget about. Monarch has been great in helping me to do that. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNBA. We'll be back for more here at Locked On Nuggets. We're back here at Locked On Nuggets, here with Mr. One and Only Ryan Blackburn, a.k.a. Malone's right-hand man, a.k.a. Adelman's right-hand man, a.k.a. Ben Tinder, John Wallace, Ben Wallace, right-hand man. Maybe
they used me, and clearly, like what the conversations that we had at draft night, they're like, yeah, no, we're good. We're not gonna do anything crazy. And so I put that out there into the ether, was going my sad mopey Eeyore self, and then lo and behold, they trade for Cam Johnson 3 days later.
Yeah, facts, y'all. But make sure if you want to get great content like this, make sure you like, share, and subscribe on the YouTube side. We're on the way to 15,000 subscribers, y'all. We will get there by the end of this year. I believe it. We're going to have so much energy around the start of the season. Oh, yeah, 27, 12, and 12, 100% true shooting. Oh, my God, Jamal Murray, he looks amazing. He looks like an all-star. Cam Johnson, has he tween. Pull. Bruce Brown's back dunking on people. Jonas Valanciunas. Hey, all of you Lithuanians, come on over. Let's come win this title. The Greeks, y'all get on board. Win an NBA title this year, Greeks. And then next year, you can do whatever you want. Come with an NBA title this year with the Denver Nuggets. I'm telling you, it's going to be the place to be. And if you're listening to this on the audio side, give us a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. That way more and more people can hear about the great content being made here at Locked On Nuggets. All right, Ryan Blackburn, let's get into the nuts and bolts, because me and you, this is where the divide between Ryan Blackburn and Swipa exists. We get along great on a lot of things, but there's a massive divide in what we think the numbers should look like for Christian Braun. Now, let me be clear about this. I want people to understand my position. I don't care how much athletes make, because I think athletes should make as much money as they humanly possibly can. That's just me. There shouldn't be a cap on what it looks like, because for me, I think athletes are worth that. Like, if you have worked your whole life to be elite at something, then you should be able to make as much money as possible without the man getting inside your pocket. But there is a salary cap. And if you ask me, based on player projection and based on where you are in the league and based on what you could be, I have a different perspective on terms of how we make it work in the salary cap that now has first and second aprons, huge penalties, and a CBA where you don't want to have a lot of exorbitant contracts.
Yeah.
So, Ryan Blackburn, if I told you that the range for Christian Braun that I would like to see is anywhere between Andrew Nembhard at $18 million a year and DeAndre Hunter at $23 million a year, is that unfair? Is that crazy? Or do you not think that's realistic?
Oh, it seems realistic. I think that's a realistic range. We talked about this a little bit last week, where Nembhard, one of the reasons why he signed for that level of deal was because he was halfway kind of between sixth man for them, but also was a second round pick and had second round pick restrictions on the amount of money that he was able to get. So that's one factor. But the other thing is that as the cap continues to go up, and it's pretty much going up 10% every single season, the money changes, and the actual number that you say, whether it's like 18 million to 23 million or whatever, like you increase 10% to that. The next year, it's 19.8 million to 25.3 million, somewhere around there. And so that's the range that I am thinking about with an extension. I'm not necessarily thinking about how much like these guys have been making in the past, although it is a good barometer to kind of get a percentage of the cap and what you think that a fifth starter for a championship team is worth. Going back and looking through some spot track numbers in the past, if you go back to 2023 shooting guards contracts that were signed, only like RJ Barrett, Tyler Hero, and Jordan Poole were above 25 million. It's not a thing that was happening. The shooting guards in that particular year were pretty weak overall. The next year, 2024, you had Devin Booker, Paul George, Anthony Edwards. They all signed max deals. Desmond Bane signed a pretty big deal with Memphis as well, a 5-year extension for 39 million average annual value. That's a lot. CJ McCollum also signed a $32 million deal. That was a lot. Devin Vassell signed a $27 million deal. Don't you think that Christian Braun is a better player than Devin Vassell? I kind of think so. And KCP signed a 3-year, $66 million contract with the Orlando Magic, who are like, and that was a $22 million average annual value. And I think that KCP is a worse player at this point than Christian Braun is now.
Can you archetype that list a little bit, maybe to filter it out even more in your perspective? Because when I hear Devin Vassell, I'm somebody who's talked about Devin Vassell numerous times.
Sure.
He's a 6'7" or 6'5". Let me be fair, 6'5", swing 2-3, who's a very good scorer, has a lot of scoring chops, over the shot shooter. He's a shot creator, and he's a like a decent defender. He's still like very young in his development. You know, the Spurs as a whole, they don't have a lot of defenders around him up until this last year. And then now, I think Devin Vassell has higher upside than him. And I think from a traditional sense, scoring typically like you value that more than almost anything else. And I think Devin Vassell clearly has some upside to his game offensively. I don't know if that Christian has. When I hear Christian, he's like a better version for me of what KCP is. Like, so how would you kind of, if you thought about it more that way, when I hear a Christian, I'm thinking more like KCP, Andrew Nembhard. Desmond Bane's like an all-star. Like he's on this similar.
I'm just going through the list of the different shooting guards that have signed, because there are tiers, obviously.
Sure.
I think of Christian as the 12th to 16th best shooting guard in the NBA, somewhere in that general range. I haven't gone through the list yet, but that's the kind of place where you think he's going to live. And then when he's at his peak, he'll be broaching on that top 10. He's never going to be like an all-star kind of guy. I don't think that that's in the cards. But could he be like Josh Giddey, for example, has been like, he's more of ball in hand kind of player. James Harden, Jalen Green, more ball in hand kind of players. But there are contracts that signed this year for, like, Josh Giddey signed $25 million per year, 4 years, $100 million. I think that he's slightly better than Christian and plays a slightly different role. Alex Caruso,
much different role.
Alex Caruso is a better player, I think, right now than Christian Braun. But at 30 years old and coming off the bench, he's getting $20.2 million.
Yeah.
So that's for a sixth man. You think that Christian plays a more important role?
I don't think it should be looked at that way, though.
You don't think
Christian's not a more value? Well, Christian and Alex Caruso, even if they're the only reason he's coming off the bench is because of the way the team is rostered. Like, he's an actual starter with OKC, and I think, to your point, he's a more impactful player than Christian as well. I mean, he's, honestly, in that series, he was far more impactful than Christian Braun was. Respectfully, like, Christian obviously still had some good moments, but I think Caruso, the $20 million a year for Caruso, and then the 25, who I think Giddey is an offensive engine. So, like, he's obviously a different tier than Christian as well. But I do think that Caruso, KCP, Nembhard-ish are like kind of where I see him. And that's why I get the cap on about 23 for me, because I just think from a role standpoint. But also, too, I'll tell you what's working in my mind as well, Ryan. I know you think about this. Cam Johnson's going to be extension eligible as well.
Yep.
So, and it's not about like, one's money impacts the other, like in, some sense, like, you got to, like, players need to be concerned about that at all. Like, it has nothing to do with that. But it's just Aaron Gordon right now. He's making 22 this year. He'll have 31.9, 34.5, 37.
He's jumping
coming up. Yeah. And then Cam Johnson's at 20.5 and then 22.5 next year. And then obviously you got Jonas Valanciunas on the books, which they can clear, if they need be. But then they still have 3 more years as Ignaji at 8, 7, and 7. So then
they got to work to get off that contract. That's what this year has to be during the regular season. They got to find a way to do that.
To that point, if they get off that contract, I would be what can you give me a number you think you would feel comfortable with on like the extension deal? Like how many years?
I think that both Christian and Cam Johnson should sign 4-year, $90 million deals. That would be the number. They're 22.5 million per year. I think with Cam, he is older. He's already made his money. Like from a larger contract perspective, this is another kind of re-upping for him. And once he becomes extension eligible, that's the number that I would offer. And I'd offer Christian the same thing. 4 years, 90 million. And then you have your starting unit locked in with those 5 guys. And you feel pretty good about that team, at least for the next 2 to 3 years. You know that you're going to get those guys within the peaks of their prime, within the best versions of themselves. And I mean, you're going to have to pay. Like that's how it's going to be. You're going to pay a cheap dollar for the bench and you're going to pay top dollar for the starters. And that's, I think, a reasonable place to go.
Sure. On the other side, we'll finish this part of the conversation. We're going to ask the question directly. How many years does this Nuggets team have? And what can be some of the expectations about the team going forward? We'll talk about all that and more here at Locked On Nuggets. Now, y'all, caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5-hour energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine up a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. Now, what I love most is how portable they are. Big taste, tiny shot, and you can take it anywhere and get that boost when you need it. Now, again, y'all, I have used 5-hour energy so many times, especially as somebody, as y'all know, who lives in Georgia. That means I drive. If I'm going to go to Florida, if I'm going back to Colorado, if I'm going back to Texas in my alma mater, it is a drive. I have absolutely taken 5-hour energies to get me through 10, 8, 12-hour drives, and it's worked so many times. So enough with boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5-hour energy shots. Get the favorite you love, or be bold and try something new in store and online at www.5hourenergy.com or Amazon today. We'll be back for the final segment here at Locked On Nuggets. We're back for the final segment here at Locked On Nuggets, talking with Ryan Blackburn and Swipa. Thank you all so much for being here with us today.
Yes, sir.
We're wrapping up the portion of the conversation about Christian Braun's numbers. I think that contract is very fair. I think that if you were to get a 4-year, $90 million deal that you suggested, that would be within range of what you can expect. And I don't think that would put tremendous pressure on the org going forward. Because if you got 2 people on your roster that are 2 very good players making sub $25 million a year, you have flexibility and you got an opportunity to be able to use those contracts at a later date should you decide to. So I do think that would be fair. I do think that'd be a good contract, because up next, I actually think Julian Strawther, he's probably going to have an impactful enough year where he's going to get a deal from Denver. Now, I don't know what exactly that number would look like, but, we're looking at a situation where they could have their top 6 or 7 locked up for the foreseeable future, and I think that would help them a lot.
Of course. You want to know, like, one of the big things about 22-23 was that you felt that Denver had established a window of 2 to 3 years, 2 to 3 years in how they're approaching it. They gave KCP an extension before after he was acquired. They gave him an extension that year, just to kind of kick the can down the road and give themselves a little bit of flexibility. You knew that Bruce Brown was on a 1-year deal. There was nothing you could do about that, but he was really the only one. And everybody else, it felt pretty good about just where they're at. So if you can re-up this group and make sure that they're not worried about money, or maybe there's only one guy that's focused on, hey, what does the next contract look like? It's just easier for people to buy in. It's easier for people to accept what their role is going to be, what the coach has asked for them, And it's one of the things that I have, like, I'm not worried about with Christian. I think that he's wired the way that you would want. He's always just like deferring to Jokic and Murray and doing those things. Cody asks in the comments, does that include P-Watt, Swipa? We've talked about that before. You mentioned Julian Strouder before you mentioned P-Watt. Julian's not even like extension eligible yet, but you have to factor that in.
Yeah, again, I'm thinking prototypes. Now, Peyton's going to have to develop, truly get an offensive game going this year. It's just in the way the league works. Players that are offensively minded like that, where they have an offensive package of dribble creation, pull up shooting, can hit a floater, so an in-between game, and an open three-point shooter. And again, Julian's 6'7". All that stuff kind of aids. Julian is probably more likely at this point to get a deal than Peyton Watson, but mostly because Peyton has to have some kind of transferable skill set offensively. And I'm not saying that he can't get there. I think transition, he was clearly better last year. I brought that up going into last year. He needed to get better at that. The shooting needs to continue to improve from him. But also, you do need to find, like, what is the defense worried about with you? Or are you just going to be a negative offensive spacer on the floor at all times? There does need to be something there. But I think at this point, the way the NBA is kind of wired, I do see them looking at Julian. But also, if Peyton becomes an all-NBA level defender, then that could change everything I'm saying.
Oh, yeah. And there's at least a world to me where they decide to accept that Cam Johnson is only going to be here for 2 years and Peyton Watson then becomes the starting 3 after that time. But it only happens if Peyton holds up his end of the bargain and develops the way that you need him to develop. And that would be an interesting wrinkle for Denver to become a little bit more defensive with that kind of setup rather than with having an offensive spacer like a Cam Johnson out there. One thing for Peyton, 87th percentile as a corner three-point shooter in some of the numbers that I was looking at over the course of this past year. I've got an article coming out tomorrow, but everywhere else he is well below average. Everywhere else. So he's got to improve across the board efficiency-wise.
Yeah, and you know what? He's young. So, like, going a player that didn't play a lot at UCLA, super talented guy. It sometimes takes longer than 3 years, longer than 4 years, longer than 5 years. You know, I brought this up for Bo Nix on Twitter, Ryan, but like Baker Mayfield didn't really hit until year 8. Like, I think that's kind of where the comparison is. I think Peyton Watson, every single summer, you just got to get better in certain ways, and that's how you'll get where you want to get, and then you get your bread, you get your money.
Well, if there's anything you know about Denver fans, whether it's Nuggets or Broncos, it's that they're extremely patient. They're extremely patient people and are willing to wait until year 8 for those things to manifest.
Sure. And by the way, Alex Caruso, you remember too, he wasn't a shooter at all for the first long part of his career, and then he went through the last couple of years with the Bulls, and then he went to the OKC Thunder, and then, became a playoff.
But it is why you have to be willing to invest in these guys that are willing to, like, even when things aren't going well offensively, are just willing to buy in on the defensive end and play high effort basketball, high effort, high intelligence level basketball. That's why I think Christian Braun is so valuable.
Sure. So the question is, how many years do you think these Nuggets have? So, Ryan, when you look at the roster, they have Jokic is 30. Aaron Gordon just turned 30 yesterday.
Wild. I kept thinking that he's older, but he drafted in 2014. He was drafted at 18 years old. And that's something that you don't really fully appreciate until he's 30 now in 2025.
Yeah, so he's 30. And then Jamal Murray's 28. He'll be 29 in February. Jokic will be 31 in February. Cam Johnson 29 now, will turn 30 this year. And then you also have Christian, who is 24.
He, I think, is. Oh, I thought he was 23, turning 24. Let me check on that for you.
I think he might be.
He is. No, he's 24 and 153.
Yeah. So 24. Yeah, so 24, and then Brucey B obviously is 28, I think, now at this point. But he might guarantee. You know what? If I'm Bruce Brown, I'm coming back. Period, because I just don't want to go back out there no more. Because it's
he got the $45 million for 2 years. Now you could just sign minimum contracts until you get the bird rights with Denver, and then you sign for a large.
Bro, if he has another great year with Denver, first off, the NBA should be like, we're not falling for this again. I'm not giving you money, right? And then I would just keep re-signing. Bruce wants to be in Denver, so it needs to stay that way. He needs to be the Manu Ginobili or Andre Iguodala of the Denver Nuggets.
Unfortunately, and this is kind of like you and I have been having this debate. It's why the starters get paid so much and the bench gets paid so little. The idea of the 6th, 7th, and 8th man in the NBA is just you are now minimum contract fodder for the most part for these guys. That's how so many teams operate, especially these teams that are at the second apron. Yeah, you're going to pay the star level players 50 or 60 million. You're going to pay your second star 40 million. You're going to pay the rest of your starting lineup a combined about 50 million. And then you've got very little money left over.
So I will say to you that the thing that changes this roster, I think, is Peyton Watson's ascension and DeRon Holmes. Because the modern day defense, you have to have long rim protectors who are athletic. And you have to have players that have offensive chops. Because when you look at Evan Mobley, super long, super tall, super athletic. Chet Holmgren, long, tall, athletic. Jaren Jackson Jr., long, tall, athletic. Jared Allen, long, tall, athletic. Now, then you get like Zubac, like you got these big, like mega men who are 7 feet tall, 300 pounds, and like, all that kind of stuff. But then you have Amin Thompson, super long, uber athletic, and somebody who's also very skilled defensively. Also, Ausar Thompson, who doesn't get the love that his brother gets because he plays in Detroit, but like he's also very similar to that as well. I think that those are the two prototypes that the Nuggets have that are like your defensive ceiling could hinge. Like I am excited this year, Ryan. I don't know how often we see it, but a Holmes-Watson lineup defensively plus whatever mix they put out there, that could be the best. I mean, but I'm saying that like I think for you, you're not as high on Holmes.
It's not just that. It's stuff that I've been thinking about with the Nuggets rotation. It's all fun and games to talk about it that way until you also have to put Jonas Valanciunas at the 5. And then you're like, okay, so yeah, you've got these rangy athletic forwards.
Yeah.
But they have to cover so much ground because you've got a plotting center in the middle. The only way that those guys are really fully optimized is if they have another athlete next to them.
But I think the other issue with that is that the reason I disagree with it is because I've talked about this prior to Jonas even leaving Pelicans.
Yeah.
I've said this multiple times. Jonas anchoring, and I mean anchoring as he plays center. He was anchoring the best defense in the NBA for about a 2-month period with the Pelicans. Now, granted, it was him and Jackson Hayes and like Herb Jones and like CJ McCollum. And this when Zion was out. I remember Willie Green got these dudes with Jonas at the center playing the best defense in the league for a little bit. And I remember the Nuggets played them. And then that's when they had to put Jokic off the ball on Herb. This is, I think, the 22-23 season. And it came down to the wire in that game. And so I think some of this is just kind of like, I think Jonas can be passable depending on the scheme you put him in, but I'm not really concerned with like just a bench unit. I think the Nuggets have to develop a new this is Adelman's job, develop a new, more modern defensive identity that allows for them to utilize the fact that they do have athletes. You do have a lot of players that can take up space quickly. And it's the same thing in football, right? Obviously it's football season. When you want athletes on the field that can take up a chunk of space quickly. I think Christian does that. Peyton does that. DeRon is supposed to be able to do that because of the athleticism and the height. I think you just got to find a way to make it work. And you use Jokic's size, use Murray's size, use Aaron Gordon's size and athleticism, and you Cameron Johnson. This should be a much better defensive team this next year. I'm not saying it will be like top 10, but they should be in part because of that.
In theory, like we'll see what happens. I bet they'll be about average.
Igor, I haven't seen it in 2 years.
We got to wrap up, but to answer the final question, I think this Nuggets version has 2 years. They'll get 2 seasons, and then they will reevaluate after that.
Well, we'll find out more. Y'all make sure y'all like, share, and subscribe. Y'all know what time it is. This is Ryan and Swipa. This is Locked On Nuggets. See ya on the other side. Igor.
Stop it.